Welcome back to Conservation Travel with Roger Smith, an Australian Geographic Travel series. My name is Eliza Anderson, and today we will meet our third guest in this series of fearless women fighting for wildlife. Our host has spoken with Janine Duffy, a truly remarkable global changemaker who started Australian charity Koala Clancy Foundation. She's revolutionised wildlife tourism, proving that travel and conservation go hand in hand. Janine's work spans decades, from groundbreaking koala research to starting her charity, Koala Clancy Foundation, and helping to set up and create Australian wildlife journeys, among many other achievements, which you'll hear about in today's episode. The determination and passion that Janine shares is truly contagious, and she proves one thing to be true in today's episode. That is that action is the antidote. Let's hear her story.
Hi, it's Roger here from Conservation Travel, and today I'm talking to Janine. How you going, Janine? Nice to have you here.
It's fantastic to be here, Roger. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's a thrill to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Look, let's get straight into it. You were, for a long time, the director of Echidna Walkabout Nature Tours. There's something that happened in 2014 to do with Best in Conservation, a global award that you put together and won for Echidna Walkabout. Can you tell us how that happened and the lead up to it?
Oh, it was amazing. We'd been running the business for some time, and by that time we had a fairly good handle on what we were doing. We were out there weeding, pulling out an invasive weed in the Yangs near Melbourne with our tour guests. We were engaged in koala research. You know, I'd found a way to tell koalas apart by their noses, so I was sort of following that through. We were taking out about 8,000 tour guests every year, and we were invited over to London for the World Responsible Travel Awards, and given the wink, wink, nudge, nudge that we should definitely come to this one. We'd been invited to nominate for this award, but we were up against companies doing amazing conservation work in Africa, in South America, and in Europe, and I didn't think we had a hope of getting anywhere there. So when I was sitting in this auditorium with 1,000 people and this particular award came up and they announced our name, I seriously could not believe my ears. It was such an amazing moment. I knew that what we were doing was good, but I didn't think it was global good.
And I think that's one of the important things, Janine. It was a global event. That must have changed the way that people viewed you and Echidna Walkabout.
It did, but I think more importantly, it changed the way we viewed ourselves and our impact. So that one of the judges was a United Nations program director, and he came up to me after the award and he said, "I've been wanting to talk to you." He said, "What you're doing is exactly what we want to see the tourism industry doing. You know, not just preaching to the converted, but taking it to the world. It's not just talk, it's action, and it's on so many levels, you know. It's science, it's conservation action, it's small groups, it's low emissions, you know." And I just felt how funny that a little Australian company can be doing something that's world class. But it turns out quite a lot of little Australian companies do things that are world class. They just don't realise it.
What was the actual award for?
It was the best in wildlife conservation, which is pretty exciting. I was really thrilled. We were working very much with koalas and with their conservation at that time. I still am. And it's been my life's work.
and it had a lot to do with koalas, and Echidna Walkabout was doing a lot with koalas. And that then turned into something different, didn't it? It turned into probably your proudest achievement, and that's also had a global implications, which was the Koala Clancy Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of it, what Koala Clancy's done, what it's planning to do for the future?
Yeah, I met a little baby koala in 2012 and called him Clancy. Little did I know that he was going to change my life, that fella. He was the most charismatic koala I'd ever met, and he stayed with his mum for 2 years. Now, normally baby male koalas stay with their mum for 1 year, and then they disperse to a faraway land, and we lose track of them. But this little fella stayed longer, so we got to know him as an adult. And then he moved 3.5 kilometres to the east to our other research area. And for a moment there, I thought, oh my gosh, this might be the first time I ever get to monitor a wild male koala from birth through to adulthood. But there wasn't enough habitat for him there. And I knew that he would not stay because the habitat was saturated. You know, there was as many koalas there as there could be koalas there. And I knew there were other big males there. He wouldn't get a chance being a young fella. And so I racked my brains to think of ways that we could overnight make habitat for him so that he could stay. I only needed 5 hectares. That's the home range of a young male. And I looked around and I knew there was something at the back of my brain that this invasive weed, bone seed, destroys koala habitat. So an area of bushland that has beautiful koala habitat trees in it won't be used by koalas if there's a really thick infestation of this particular weed underneath. We don't know exactly why. I think it's a physical barrier, but I had noticed that, you know, wherever there was a lot of weeds, there were no koalas. And I looked at the 8,000 wonderful people we were taking out there on tours every year, and I thought, oh, you know what, if each of them pulled out 5 weeds, we might clear a habitat for him.
And was that successful?
Oh gosh, yes. Clancy stayed for 10 years. Now, not only did he stay, we had a quadrupling of koala numbers in that area because we kept going. We cleared the 5 hectares we needed for Clancy, and then we kept on going because we were having a ball. Everyone was loving it. It turned out to be quicker and easier than we thought, and our guests were so enthusiastic. We ended up clearing 120 hectares of this invasive weed.
That is spectacular. And was that the beginning of the Koala Clancy Foundation? Is that what started you off? Can you tell us where you went to from there?
So then I started to dream about whether we could plant trees for koalas in the places they needed the most. And I also found I really enjoyed and I really wanted to work with locals as well as internationals. So we opened up our doors to local volunteers. And, the world changed for me. Suddenly, there was this wonderful opportunity to work with my fellow Australians, to see the same people over and over again, week after week, to do, Roger, we have pulled out 4.3 million bone seed weeds since we started in those days.
That's amazing, absolutely amazing. I understand you've got plans for the future outside of the Yang.
I did some calculations and worked out how many trees the Yang's koalas would need if they had to get out of the Yangs. And it came to 300,000, which is an awful lot. And I thought, can we even do that? The alternative does not bear thinking of. Because the alternative is they all die.
Yeah. I'm assuming that members of the Koala Clancy Foundation are aware of that, and they're doing their best too to try and help you plant those trees. How many have you got in the ground so far in the 10 years that you've given yourself?
Well, we started in 2020 and thought we could possibly do 30,000 a year if we pushed ourselves very hard. And we've done 164,789 in
that precise.
4 years.
Well done. That's remarkable, and I'm sure that I know this is a bit upsetting to think about what could happen to koalas in the future, but at least you're helping people do something to make the world a better place and to make the world a better place for koalas. So well done you, and I'm sure that anybody watching this will want to come out and help you. Now, you coined the phrase, it's help nature while you enjoy it. That was used for A Kid in a Walkabout, and it's being used for Koala Clancy Foundation as well. Having been in tourism and now in conservation, for want of a better word, what are your thoughts on how the tourism industry is going?
Well, I learned some really important things. I started in tourism when I was in my early 20s, and I already loved nature. I fell in love with koalas, but I also found I like people a lot more than I thought I did. I don't think my people skills were my greatest skill. But one thing I learned by working with a lot of people over those years is that people are fundamentally good. But to do good, they need leadership and guidance. And you can't know everything about everything. And people occasionally do harm just because they don't know. And so those of us who have expertise should share it. We're duty bound to share it. I've actually learned that from working with a lot of First Nations Aboriginal people over the years. You know, don't be afraid to lead, and don't be afraid to teach when you've got something to teach.
You took that message to the world, and now you're taking the message to Australians, and the help nature while we enjoy it is still working for you by the sound of things.
It is. I think when people travel, their mind is at its most open to new ideas. They want to learn. And think about how often you've been on a trip and you've come home and you've started doing something differently because of something you saw or did on that trip. This is a really special time in people's lives. And tour operators have an opportunity to really make a difference for people when they're traveling. And if we waste that by just, I don't know, giving them more food, more wine, if we waste that opportunity when people want to do conservation action, they're thrilled to bits to do it. Mm. When we first introduced the idea of pulling out a weed to help a koala, people absolutely leapt at it. People from all walks of life. I remember one family who they had a couple of teenage kids, and a dad and the kids hadn't said much up to this point, and we started them weeding and they were set for the rest of the day. They did not want to go anywhere else. They were having a ball, feeling like they were doing something for this beautiful animal that they'd just met. And they didn't pull out 5 weeds. They pulled out more like 5,000.
That's such a positive message to the travel industry that it works. You've proved that it works. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, winning the best in conservation globally makes you a global change maker, and you've made it work. And I just think that's remarkable. I just want to move on to something else that you've done. Women Birders Australia. Now, I have spoken to 2 of our other guests about this, but you started Women Birders Australia. Can you let us know why you did that and what you're hoping will come out of that? And has it done what you wanted it to do?
Oh, yes. It has done what I wanted. I looked around the birding community and I didn't see many women in leadership positions, in positions high up. I myself had trouble finding a mentor who was a woman, and I thought of all those young women starting out in birding and seeing a whole lot of male birders who, nice as they might be, you can't imagine yourself in that position. You can imagine yourself when you see someone who's like you. And not just women either, people from diverse racial backgrounds, LGBT, people with all sorts of diversity were not seeing their type in leadership positions. And I thought the best way to fix that is to create a group of us and help each other along this path, empower each other, educate each other. And I have made so many good friends out of Women Birders Australia. I'm very proud to know Karen, who you spoke to, and Amanda Lillyman because of Women Birders. We go out for weekends together. We go birding together with all sorts of people, and we learn from each other. And I'm so proud to be part of it.
And just in case people don't know about it, women would like to join. It's a Facebook group and it's called Women Birders Australia. People can find that on Facebook. Look, Janine, you've been talking to the world for many, many years now. Is there anything that you'd like to say just to finish this interview?
The one thing I'd like to pass on is that you don't need to be a scientist to make a difference for wildlife and conservation. Anyone can do it. Just reach out, collaborate, and look at what is around you. And I think everyone can make a difference. My favourite mantra is that action is the antidote. If you're feeling like you can't do enough, if you're feeling a bit down, then just pick yourself up and go out and do something.
What a fantastic way to finish up. And we will put some information just so people can get links to what they need to know about you. But I'd like to thank you for coming along and joining us. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here. Keep an eye out, everybody. You'll see Janine somewhere marching around the world changing things.
Thank you, Roger. Koala Clancy Foundation plants trees for koalas here in Southern Australia. We have a mission to plant 300,000 trees by 2030. That is 30,000 trees a year for the next decade. The 2020 bushfires broke something in me and in most of us who work with koalas. But what it did is it brought koalas to the forefront of the fight against climate change. The hard thing is that our window is closing. With climate change drying out these landscapes, it's going to get harder and harder to plant trees. In a decade from now, we don't know if we'll even be able to do it. So if we put trees in better places, wetter places, in the rivers of the plains out here, It's only going to take 2 to 7 years for those trees to be usable for a koala. The next decade is going to be planting trees as fast as we can so that we can get real habitat out there for koalas to live on. It costs $10 to plant every single tree. So we need hands, we need money, we need effort in every possible way. And to have big sponsors all over the world will be the making of this project. Now is the time and we must act. Now, off you go! Save koalas!
Janine Duffy's dedication is incredible. Action is the Antidote is more than an idea. It's a philosophy, one that is fueling change across the globe. If you want to help koalas, head to the Koala Clancy Foundation website to donate or find out how you can get involved. And if you'd like to become a part of Women Birders Australia, you can find the group on Facebook. Lastly, don't forget to check out our last 2 episodes with Amanda Lillyman and Karen Dick, 2 other fearless women fighting for wildlife. You can find them on the Australian Geographic YouTube channel. In our next episode, we'll be travelling to far north Queensland, where our host Roger Smith will be speaking with James Bocher, the owner of Far North Queensland Nature Tours. James is a leading light and trailblazer in small group wildlife tours, and we have a lot to learn from him. I'll see you then.